Peter, a wonderful hotel owner, finds himself unexpectedly removed from his own beloved establishment, completely unaware of the whirlwind of events about to take place. The staff, unfortunately judging him based solely on how he looks, quickly decided if he was worthy of being there, without realizing the incredible twist that would soon transform their lives and the system that permits such unfairness to persist. Once the truth comes to light, it will not only reshape their destinies, but also shake the very core of the biases they unknowingly support. What unfolds next will amaze even those who think they've witnessed everything. But let's take a step back and embark on this journey together to combat systemic bias and injustice. Remember, subscribing and liking every action you take brings us all one step closer to meaningful change. Today, Peter stood at the entrance of his hotel with purpose, opting to see firsthand how his staff treated guests instead of relying on second-hand reports. Remaining in the shadows was essential for him as it allowed him to truly witness the situation. The hotel radiated perfection, with its marble floors shining brightly, the chandeliers twinkling beautifully, and the reception staff presenting themselves with professionalism. However, Khan understood that appearances could often be deceiving. Dressed simply in jeans and a jacket that didn't scream his high status, he blended in quite well. To many, he might have appeared as just another ordinary guest, which was exactly what he wanted. This gave him a wonderful chance to observe how the staff interacted with visitors. At first glance, everything in the lobby seemed serene, yet Khan couldn't shake off a nagging feeling of discomfort. Having experienced prejudice and racism throughout his life, he found himself wondering if this would occur in his very own hotel. As he approached the front desk, the receptionist, a young man named Ram, didn't even spare him a glance. Khan stood there eagerly waiting for a welcoming greeting, but the silence lingered far too long. Ram hesitantly lifted his gaze and shot him a frosty look. Clearly annoyed by the interruption, he asked in a flat tone without a hint of a smile, "Can I help you?" In that moment, Khan instantly felt a change in the atmosphere. It was that all too familiar sensation of being judged not by his abilities but by his appearance. Keeping his cool, he politely inquired about available rooms. Although he already knew the answer, he was curious to see how Ram would respond. Ram barely glanced at the computer screen, neglecting to properly check the system. "Sorry, all rooms are booked," he replied curtly, turning to another staff member as if Khan was no longer there. Standing firm, Mishi suppressed his inner frustration. This was a situation he was all too familiar with. His appearance and simple attire instantly placed him in the less favored category. He sensed this wasn't by chance and chose to stay, letting the moment unfold a little longer. Michi remained at the desk, even though the welcome was quite frosty. The disappointment inside him grew, yet he had faced this kind of treatment before. He was curious to see just how far the staff's bias would extend. Staying composed, he kindly repeated his request. "Would you mind checking my reservation, please? I made sure to book the room in advance." Ram, clearly annoyed that the guest hadn't left, sighed without bothering to conceal his irritation and begrudgingly started to check the reservation, every movement and glance clearly signaling that Michi was just a hassle to be dealt with. Ram lazily tapped a few keys, then with a barely hidden smirk, said, "Sorry, I don't see your reservation here." His tone suggested, "Why don't you just leave?" Michi felt the tension building within him, but he kept a calm exterior. He recognized the all-too-familiar judgment based solely on looks. Ram didn't even attempt to mask his disdain, but Khan was determined not to give in. He gently requested the receptionist to check once more. Ram rolled his eyes, clearly showing just how much the request frustrated him. Anna, another staff member, overheard the exchange, gave a quick glance at Khan, then quietly whispered something to Ram before stepping back. "Maybe we should just kick him out," she whispered loud enough for Khan to hear. That comment stirred a blend of anger and disappointment within Khan. He had often come across such mindsets, as if his very presence was somehow unwelcome. Ram turned to Khan again. "I've already told you we don't have any rooms available for you. Perhaps you should look for somewhere else to stay," he sneered. His dismissive tone made Khan realize that this was less about the hotel or the reservation and more about the color of his skin and how he didn't fit their idea of a typical guest. The administrator's words lingered in the air as Colin felt a familiar rush of anger. It was all too recognizable. He glanced over at Ram, who clearly wasn't hiding his feelings, and it hit him that this wasn't merely a frustrated worker, but rather a reflection of a system steeped in unfair bias. Each time he encountered something like this, it served as a reminder that his accomplishments and position could vanish in a heartbeat due to the color of his skin. Colin took a calming breath, trying to soothe the whirlwind inside him. In times like these, his father's wise words rang in his ears. He recalled how his dad had instilled in him from a young age that one must work twice as hard and shine twice as bright, as the world often judges based on skin color rather than talent. His father didn't just talk the talk, he walked the walk. He taught Colin that respect must be earned, even when the system didn't seem to offer it freely. Yet, every time he faced moments like this, it felt like all that hard work was being overlooked. Doubts began to sneak in. Should he stand up now, or would it be wiser to step away and forget this whole thing? But Colin understood that this wasn't just a trivial matter. This moment represented something much larger than a simple disagreement with employees. It was a challenge that couldn't be brushed aside. If he walked away now without standing up for himself, it would mean accepting that such treatment was okay, that it could be tolerated. Colin also considered the other hotel guests who might have experienced the same unfairness but lacked the voice to speak up. His inner struggle intensified as he debated whether to assert his authority now or let the situation unfold a little longer. He was curious to see just how far these individuals would continue their biased actions. Those thoughts quickly shifted to determination. He was here not just as a guest, but as the owner, and this was his opportunity to understand the true state of affairs in his hotel. He knew that only through moments like these could he genuinely make a difference in the system that allowed such behavior to persist. Realizing that Colin wasn't going anywhere, Ram was starting to lose his cool. He glanced over at Anna, looking for a little support. With arms crossed, Ram spoke with evident annoyance. "I've told you there are no rooms available for you. I'm not sure what you're not getting, but it's time for you to leave." His tone made it clear that this was more than just a simple service refusal. It felt like a direct effort to make Colin feel unwelcome. Anna, noticing the growing tension, stepped forward and suggested, "How about we call security? We really don't have time for misunderstandings like this." The word misunderstanding lingered in the air, and Colin could sense the underlying message. They were not keen on having someone like him around. Michi maintained a calm exterior, but inside, he felt a mix of disappointment and frustration. He understood that many in his shoes would have left ages ago, worn out by a system that seemed to reject them so blatantly, but he felt determined to stand his ground for a little while longer to see how far this bias would go. Ram nodded reassuringly at Anna, who promptly called for security. Just a few minutes later, two robust men in uniforms arrived in the lobby. Their arrival certainly heightened the situation. One of them, tall and sturdy, approached Colin directly without asking any questions. "Sir, we kindly ask that you leave the hotel. We'll be happy to escort you out," he stated, without even attempting to grasp the situation. Colin glanced at the guards, realizing that things were escalating quickly. The security personnel didn't seem interested in resolving or understanding the matter. The receptionist's label of him as undesirable was evidently enough justification for their action. This was yet another instance of systemic bias, where one person's personal feelings shaped the group's decision without hesitation. Suppressing his inner turmoil, Michi firmly stated, "I'm not leaving, I have every right to be here." The guards exchanged looks, and the second one, in a more forceful tone, added, "If you don't leave willingly, we may need to take further action." This was the tipping point. Michi recognized that the situation had reached its peak, and now it was time to unveil his true self. The security guards, seeing no reaction to their warning, advanced towards him. One of them grabbed Colin by the elbow, attempting to push him out of the hotel. That was the final straw. Michi understood that allowing himself to be forced out would mean more than just a personal loss. It would silently imply that such systemic bias and discrimination were acceptable. He swiftly freed his arm from the guard's grip, leaving him momentarily surprised, and calmly said, "It seems you're not quite aware of who you're dealing with." The security guards shared puzzled glances, with one of them giving a dismissive sneer. "And who might you be?" inquired the second guard, his tone playful at that moment. Michi cheerfully pulled out his wallet from an inner pocket and showed them his ID, clearly revealing that he was the proud owner of the hotel and an entire chain of hotels. Ram and Anna, along with the guards, were taken aback, surprised by this unexpected twist, their expressions shifting in an instant from disdain and arrogance to bewilderment and concern. Ram swallowed hard, coming to terms with the seriousness of his blunder. "This is a joke, right?" Anna whispered, weakly gazing at Khan's ID, but his eyes moved away. It was clear he was the owner, and now the situation was entirely out of their hands. "You've just tried to throw out the owner of the hotel because you judged me based on my appearance," Michi pointed out. Slowly and confidently, with a calm yet authoritative voice, he placed the ID back in his pocket and met Ram's gaze directly. "You didn't even take the time to check my reservation. You didn't believe I could be someone significant. All you focused on was my appearance." A profound silence enveloped the room. The guards were at a loss for words. Ram, now clearly rattled, struggled to find an explanation, but grasping the magnitude of the moment, all he could utter was, "I didn't know." Anna, who had been standing close by, was equally bewildered. Unsure of how to respond to this surprising turn, Michi continued to regard them with a steely resolve. He understood that this was a crucial moment, not just for himself but for the system that enabled such treatment. The silence that filled the lobby was palpable. Ram, Anna, and the security guards stood still, uncertain about how to navigate this predicament. Their faces reflected confusion and embarrassment as Michi kept his steady gaze on them, sensing the tension rising in the atmosphere. This was the moment when all their confidence and arrogance crumbled in an instant. "You didn't know, did you? You needed to recognize who I was to show some basic respect?" Khan said in a calm manner. Yet, his words carried a significant impact. Anna and Ram remained quiet, as if their words were caught in their throats. They came to understand that their actions were influenced not by hotel policies but by their own preconceived notions about who deserved to stay at this hotel. Michi chose to remain silent, knowing they had already grasped the situation. Now, it was up to the hotel's management to address the consequences. The friendly security guards, realizing that things had escalated a bit too much, started to slowly step back, wishing that their part in the situation would be overlooked. But Khan turned to them with a gentle gaze, saying, "You thought you could decide who belonged here just by looking at them." The guards stood quietly, aware that their actions were now being closely watched. A few moments later, the hotel manager came into the lobby, his expression a bit tense. As he learned about the situation, he walked over to Khan with a look of sincere remorse. "Mr. Walker, I'm truly sorry for what happened here. I can't believe something like this took place at our hotel," his voice filled with concern and regret. Khan offered him a reassuring look. "I'm not here for apologies, I'm here for positive change," he stated with a steady voice. The manager nodded, clearly recognizing that this situation was about much more than just one isolated incident. It was a sign of a larger issue that needed immediate attention. "You'll need to rethink how your team is trained and how they act," Khan continued. "I won't stand for anyone experiencing this kind of treatment in my hotel. This isn't the first instance of bias, and if you don't adjust your policies, it certainly won't be the last." The manager sighed and, lowering his head slightly, replied softly, "We'll review all our procedures and provide special training for the staff. This will definitely not happen again." Khan nodded in agreement, but deep down he knew that words were easy while real change required more effort. He realized that this incident needed to be a lesson not just for these employees, but for the whole system that allowed such behavior to be seen as acceptable. After the meeting with the manager, Khan left the lobby and settled onto a couch in the hotel's lounge. He understood that this incident was merely the beginning of a much bigger issue, and the prejudice he faced was deeply rooted in various layers of society. He recalled conversations with his father, who always encouraged him, "Don't be afraid to stand tall and fight for what's right." Those words had always resonated with him, and today they felt especially meaningful. Khan called his wonderful wife Leah. Her unwavering support had always been his greatest comfort during tough times. When she picked up, there was a touch of concern in her voice. "Are you okay? I know you didn't just visit the hotel today for no particular reason." Khan shared a quick overview of the situation with her, and she listened attentively, recognizing that this wasn't just a typical day at work. "I knew you would come across something like this eventually," Leah said. "But I'm so proud that you didn't just roll with it. You took charge and chose to make a difference." Her encouraging words filled Khan with relief. He realized that his family would always be his source of strength, and that motivated him to keep pushing forward. "You've always dreamed of creating an environment where others wouldn't have to endure what you faced. From the very beginning, it's been your goal not just to succeed but to leverage that success to make a positive impact in the world around you right now. You've moved another step closer to that," Leah added. Her supportive words further solidified Khan's determination. He understood that the encouragement from his family was what empowered him to keep striving, even when it felt like the system was too rigid to change. Michi also recognized that his actions could inspire a positive shift in the attitudes of the hotel staff towards their guests. He hadn't merely pointed out their biases, he had imparted a lesson that could transform their perspectives. After chatting with Leah, Michi took a moment to think about the community where he was raised. His family and friends had always been there for him as he worked towards his dreams, and that community was a crucial part of his journey. He realized that many who faced discrimination didn't have the same support or opportunities that he did. This realization strengthened his commitment to use his position to advocate for those who couldn't stand up for themselves. The hotel incident served as a reminder to Khan that there was still much work to be done, and the love from his family and community would always be his cornerstone in the pursuit of justice and equality. He was aware that numerous challenges awaited him, but he now felt an even stronger sense of duty to keep advocating for change. In a world where bias had sadly become commonplace, Michi rose from the couch and surveyed the situation. It had prompted him to consider beyond his own experiences. This incident had evolved into a representation of the systemic injustices that many Black individuals confront daily, whether in hotels, workplaces, or public areas. Khan realized that his mission wasn't solely about holding those responsible accountable but about transforming the entire system. He saw that Anna and Ram, still a bit rattled, were exchanging uncertain looks. Unsure of their next steps, Michi approached them. "This wasn't merely an error. You acted on some preconceived notions, but now you have a wonderful opportunity to learn something new," Khan said gently, his tone calm yet impactful. Anna nodded in agreement, while Ram appeared a bit shy. Michi understood that change wouldn't happen overnight, but this lesson was vital for both of them. He turned to the hotel manager, who was standing close by, and confidently expressed, "I hope to see this place become a shining example for other hotels. Simply conducting staff training isn't sufficient. It's essential to foster a culture where situations like this are just unimaginable. I'm looking forward to seeing these changes, and I'll be checking in personally." The manager nodded, realizing that this incident wasn't just an isolated event, it reflected deeper systemic issues that needed to be tackled at their roots. This wasn't merely about his image as a manager, it was also about the future of the hotel itself. Michi understood that his mission extended beyond just resolving this situation. This moment had to set a standard for how to treat all guests, no matter their appearance or background. He recognized that many more challenges lay ahead, but taking this initial step was incredibly important. It wasn't enough to make people aware, he needed to inspire a change in the system that allowed such incidents to occur. As Khan exited the hotel, he felt this was not just a personal achievement. He understood that every little step, every encounter like this, brought him closer to his overarching goal of creating a world where respect and dignity are cherished principles for everyone, no matter their skin color. This day served as a powerful reminder that the journey for justice is long and challenging, but with the love of his family, support from his community, and his own resolve, he could bring about the changes that so many others needed, not just himself. In this way, Michi walked away from the hotel, knowing this was not the conclusion, but merely the start of a much bigger adventure toward justice.